I am pleased to welcome Adventure's authors, Gretchen Bitterlin, Dennis Johnson, and Sylvia G. Ramirez, presenting What Can We Do to Implement College and Career Readiness Standards from the Beginning. Without further ado, over to you, Sylvia.
Thank you, James. I'm really happy that you're able to be with us today. And I just want to share that after a brief poll and introduction, we will divide our presentation into 3 parts. I'll talk about citing evidence. Gretchen will discuss building vocabulary and using academic language. And Dennis will close with his section on comparing texts, including tasks to promote writing. If you have questions as we are talking, please write them in the chat pod. We'll try to address them as we go along or at the end of the webinar. Any unanswered questions will be posted on the Ventures website along with the webinar recording. At the close of the webinar, you will be able to find a link to download your certificates of participation. So the first thing we're going to do is just find out a little bit more about you. We have 3 questions about your familiarity with Ventures, with CCRS, and the level you currently teach or would like to teach. So right now we'll slide in the poll slides, and you can just begin answering them. When you finish one question, go to the next question, and finally the 3rd question, and we'll be broadcasting the results in real time. Right now they say they're closed for voting. Oh, there. I think we're okay. Oh, great. Okay. Great. Doing great. Thank you. We're looking at the results as we go. And okay. Thank you very, very much. And the good news is that we have some Ventures users online with us. Thank you very much. And also we have some familiarity with the College and Career Readiness Standards, and you're teaching different levels of instruction. And the good news is we have activities for different levels. So with that, we'll move to a little bit about the College and Career Teaching Shifts. The College and Career Readiness document of 2013 addresses reading, writing, listening, speaking, and language standards. These standards emphasize the knowledge, skills, and abilities learners must have to be college and career ready and function successfully in their communities. They have increased language demands, especially in the areas of academic words and academic language. The document also identifies 3 key shifts in instruction as an overlay to the standards. The shifts are complexity, regular practice with complex text and its academic language, evidence, reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence from the text, and knowledge, building knowledge through content-rich informational texts. But the challenge, as Parrish and Johnson remind us, is that these skills need to be taught and integrated into all levels of instruction. We can't just wait until the intermediate and advanced levels to focus on more demanding academic and career standards. So in this webinar, we're going to provide activities that address these shifts and standards at 5 levels of instruction: low and high beginning, low and high intermediate, and advanced. The examples we highlight come from the Ventures College and Career Readiness Worksheets. These worksheets were designed to accompany the Ventures student book readings and are available on the Cambridge website in the online Teachers Resource Room. At the end of the webinar, we'll share how to access these worksheets. If you currently use Ventures, these CCR worksheets will augment your instruction. But if you aren't using Ventures, and we wish you were, you can still use these worksheets. They will give you ideas on how to promote an upward shift in the knowledge, skills, and abilities your learners need to meet the more rigorous standards. So here's a preview of a low intermediate CCR worksheet, Unit 8. The topic is work. In the student book, learners read a story about Eden's blog and her first job interview. To build knowledge on the same topic, learners read an additional article shown here about 3 people and how they got their jobs. Notice the reading tip at the top of the page. There's a corresponding CCR worksheet for each unit in the Ventures series. And at the advanced level, the reading provides an opposing viewpoint to the articles in the student book. All Ventures CCR worksheets have these categories: checking your understanding, text-dependent questions that require learners to use evidence from the reading to answer the question, build your vocabulary, activities to build vocabulary skills, and help learners identify and use academic words, talk with a partner, oral practice in using academic language and citing evidence, and analyze the text. Additional text-dependent questions requiring learners to analyze and synthesize information from the readings in the student book and the CCR worksheets. Additionally, at the intermediate and advanced levels, there's 3 additional categories that support further critical analysis and synthesis through writing. Before you write, where learners complete an appropriate graphic organizer, opinion, summary, compare, contrast, cause and effect, maybe problem solution, they write, they address an expository writing prompt. For the sample unit we featured, the writing prompt is write 1 paragraph that explains 3 keys to a successful job interview. And then after you write, learners use the graphic organizer to self-check and then work with a partner to collaboratively edit and improve their written drafts. So I'll begin with part 1, citing evidence. Actually, in the CCR worksheets, we provide practice in citing evidence in 3 important categories: checking for understanding, talk with your partner, and analyze the text. But I'll be dealing with it in the check your understanding. I'll identify the key CCR standards that promote this. I'll provide examples of how you can utilize the skill of citing evidence at beginning through advanced levels, and I'll review the types of questions asked at different levels of instruction. So CCR reading anchors 1 and 2, these broad standards, underscore the importance of citing evidence. The first anchor requires learners to read closely to identify key details, and the second anchor highlights the importance of determining the central idea of a text and how the details support this central idea. Citing evidence underlies an important teaching shift for many of us. Sometimes we may have overemphasized personal experience as we try to engage our learners. A typical question I may have asked before these instructional shifts relating to the job interview was, tell me about a job interview you or someone you know had. What's the problem with this question? Learners never have to read the article to respond. Student experience takes precedence over teaching the important skill of citing evidence. How much better to ask a question such as, what did Grace Wong do that made her stand out in the application? Now all learners are making the text the expert in the room. Is there a place for personal opinion? Of course, and I'm going to show you examples right now. However, the personal opinions are based on evidence. So take a moment and read the 4 questions used to cite evidence on the Low Beginning CCR worksheet. The information text they read is a help wanted ad. I just want you to scan the questions. You're going to see them again in a minute. Now we're going to look at 4 questions from the High Beginning CCR worksheet. This information text the students read was an employee evaluation. Remember, you're going to have access to these worksheets and you'll be able to read them more closely. What we see is similar about the Low Beginning and High Beginning is they have 4 questions. They always ask for a main idea and some key detail questions, but both also have that important personal information question based on evidence. The Low Beginning question number 4 says, I think this is or isn't a good job because. The High Beginning says, question number 4 says, read the evaluation again. Do you think Jenny is a good sales associate? Why or why not? And they must pull examples from the reading. One important difference is that the low beginning questions are multiple choice questions, because we are focusing here at these levels on teaching the skill of citing evidence. Now let's look at a low intermediate questions for Check Your Understanding. This was how I got my job. Again, the sample unit we featured before. Look at these 5 questions. Okay. And now we're going to show you the advanced questions. Here the students have read Accessing Hidden Jobs. And there's 6 questions here. When you see them together, besides the obvious difference that there's one more question at intermediate and advanced, you'll notice that in addition to the central idea, main idea, and the key detail travel questions, now there are additional types of questions related to vocabulary, author's purpose, text structure, inference, or questions that require learners to review different sections of the text to answer a question. At the low intermediate question 5, it says, what word does the author use that means the same as positive qualities? This vocabulary question requires learners to search for the synonym. And at the advanced level, the first question is, in your own words, explain the 20-20-60 rule that's described in the article. This is the main idea of the reading, but learners must read and pull information from 4 of the 5 paragraphs and then paraphrase in their own words. So let's review what types of questions you saw that we ask in the Check Your Understanding pod. Could you just write a few in the chat pod and then I'll review them for you. What types of questions were featured? Let's see, some of you are typing now. Many of you are typing now. Open-ended, yes, thank you. Beginning at that low level, though, we have the forced choice questions, and then it moves to open-ended. Great. The informational text, analyze, short answer. Opinion questions, I know people ask, can we still ask opinion questions? Yes, thank you. Oh, great. Good job. There's always a general understanding question, the key detail questions. There's questions about vocabulary, varied questions when you're wanting them to analyze the text more. And finally, those questions that ask learners to look at more than one detail. So they're not just looking at one paragraph, but across paragraphs. You did very, very well. So next is part 2, building vocabulary and using academic language with Gretchen.
Good afternoon, everyone. As we realize the increasing importance of our learners needing academic skills, vocabulary becomes an important focus. In a recent webinar called Introduction to the English Language Proficiency Standards for Adult Education, the presenter, Marianne Fideli-McLeod, emphasized the need for us to engage in the purposeful teaching of vocabulary in order to give ESL learners the skills they need to transition to work or college. In this section, we will identify the key CCR standards related to vocabulary, look at examples of 3 types of exercises that address the CCR standards, and review strategies for helping students meet the standards. As Sylvia pointed out, the goal of these exercises we are sharing is to put into action the major shifts in instruction required by the CCR standards. One of the college and career readiness standards that directly addresses vocabulary is anchor number 4 in the reading standards. Learners need to interpret words in context, especially how the meaning within the text determines the appropriate definition for the word. Another CCR standard that focuses directly on vocabulary is Language Standard number 4, which says that learners need to determine or clarify the meaning of unknown and multiple meaning words and phrases by using context clues, analyzing word parts, and consulting reference materials as appropriate. The Ventures CCR worksheets at all ESL proficiency levels, beginning through advanced, contain 3 types of vocabulary building exercises. Build your vocabulary, find and use academic words, and talk with a partner using academic language phrases. So what do learners do in these exercises from level to level? If you remember, the reading at the low beginning level was a help wanted ad for a care assistant in a senior center. In order to demonstrate their comprehension of 4 new words in this reading, learners find the words in context and match words with pictures to identify the meanings of the new words. Here is the same exercise at the high beginning level, based on a reading that is an employee evaluation. How is this activity more challenging than the low beginning activity? Well, in this exercise, learners find 4 words in context, but have to identify whether each has a positive or negative meaning, and what the clues are in the text to let them know that. In other high beginning level units, exercises include finding definitions in the dictionary that match the meaning of words as used in the text, and finding the clues within the text that help with the meanings. Here's an example of a building vocabulary exercise at the low intermediate level. It is from the sample unit that was introduced earlier in this webinar, based on a reading about job interview tips. In this exercise, learners find the dictionary definition among multiple definitions that best fits the context of the word in this text. They also get practice at identifying the part of speech of the word according to how it is used in the text. In this high intermediate example, based on a reading about the benefits of telecommuting, the task is for learners to find key transition words in the text. For example, however, likewise, and furthermore. Then they identify the ideas connected by these words and then decide if the purpose is to add an idea or contrast an idea. In the advanced level exercise, based on a reading called Accessing Hidden Jobs, learners find 6 words in the text with specific suffixes and then identify the part of speech related to how the word is used in context. Words include traditional, majority, meaningful, reapportion, and utilize. They also have to identify the root word and its part of speech. The second type of vocabulary exercise in the CCR worksheets is finding words from the academic word list and discovering their meanings. What you see on the screen are the academic words from this list in Unit 8 across the first 4 levels of Ventures and in Unit 5 at the advanced level. What difference do you see as students move from level to level? Notice that the number of words increases level by level. Here are the academic word list exercises at the low beginning and high beginning levels. What differences do you see? Take a minute to look at them. At the lowest level, learners only learn 2 academic words. Learners just select the best definition by circling A or B in a multiple choice format. At the high beginning level, there are 3 words in the chart. For each word, the learner looks up the dictionary definition and identifies the part of speech. At both levels, learners find the words in the reading and finally write a sentence using the academic word. Take a look at this low intermediate exercise. What 4 tasks are the learners doing now? At the intermediate and advanced levels, the learner finds the academic word in context, identifies the part of speech, looks up the dictionary definition, and then uses the word in a sentence. Also, the number of words increases from 3 words at the low intermediate level to 6 words at the advanced level. The third type of vocabulary exercise in the CCR worksheets is called Talk with a Partner. Learners need practice in not only comprehending reading passages, but also verbally discussing the content using academic language. Most of classroom time in the adult ESL classroom tends to be focused on conversational language, talking about themselves. So learners tend to be overwhelmed when they go to an advanced or college level class and need to discuss a reading using academic language. These exercises, through carefully modeling, enable learners to learn these phrases from the beginning levels. CCR Speaking and Listening Standards 1 and 4 state the importance of citing evidence verbally, communicating with diverse partners. This exercise develops this skill by asking learners to answer questions about the readings using academic phrases appropriate for citing evidence. Notice the phrase in the useful language box next to the questions. In this beginning level exercise, the learner is interpreting a job advertisement and answering the questions asked by his partner. They're going to use the phrase according to the advertisement. So as an example, if my partner asked me question number 1, where is the job opening? I would respond like this. According to the advertisement, the job opening is at the Gentle Palm Senior Daycare Center. At the beginning high level, the learners are interpreting a job evaluation form and answer the questions using the academic phrase according to the evaluation. Here is a sample from the low intermediate level. The learners are discussing ways to prepare for and succeed in job interviews. Notice that 2 different academic phrases are provided to assist the learners cite examples from the reading. Some examples from the article are, or a few examples from the article are. At level 4, learners are also given 2 choices of academic phrases to use in reporting someone else's ideas. For example, according to the author, or the author states that. At the advanced level, learners are discussing an article on accessing hidden jobs and asked to discuss the author's point of view by using the academic phrase, the author claims that, or the author recommends that. We have just focused on 3 different types of exercises related to vocabulary development. What were they? Build vocabulary, find and use academic words, and talk with a partner using academic language phrases. Let's now summarize how each of these exercises changes from the low beginning level to the advanced level to provide the scaffolding that English language learners need to acquire higher level skills. So let's go with the first type of exercise on building vocabulary. How do these exercises increase in difficulty from level to level? First, the number of new words increases as learners move to higher levels. Also, the strategies get more difficult. If you remember, the low beginning exercises have learners match words with visuals, while high beginning exercises have learners use context clues to identify meanings. And finally, there's a differentiation of tasks. For example, tasks requiring increasing analysis of word forms, such as root words, suffixes, and transition words. Next, how did the activity with words from the academic word list increase in difficulty from level to level? The number of new academic words increases as learners move to higher levels, and there are progressively more difficult tasks related to finding definitions. Finally, how did the academic phrases used in talk with a partner exercises increase in difficulty? Learners orally cite evidence by using academic phrases that go from referring to the reading passage at the lower levels to citing an author's opinion at the higher levels. In other units, some of the other phrases learned in the useful language boxes include phrases to support an opinion, phrases to identify problems and solutions, and phrases to identify a source. This wraps up the section on vocabulary exercises. Now Dennis will share activities for comparing and analyzing 2 or more texts and writing about them.
Hi, I'm Dennis Johnson, and I'll be talking about the important skill of comparing two or more texts. The objectives for this part are first, to identify key college and career readiness standards related to comparing texts. Then we will look at some examples of how students analyze readings in ventures. And finally, we'll look at using writing as a tool for comparing texts. The idea of comparing two or more texts comes directly from the CCR standards, both for reading and writing. Reading Anchor 9 says, analyze how two or more texts address similar themes or topics in order to build knowledge or to compare the approaches the authors take. Writing Anchor 8 says, gather relevant information from multiple print and digital sources, assess the credibility and accuracy of each source, and integrate the information while avoiding plagiarism. Some key words here are similar themes or topics, multiple sources, and integrate information. Sylvia already shared that Ventures has two related readings in each unit. One is in the student's book, and the other is a related college and career readiness worksheet, which can be found online. Both of these readings share a common topic, and they are followed by questions that guide the learners to analyze and compare the readings. Later in this webinar, we will tell you more about how you can access the online worksheets. Again, as Sylvia mentioned, the questions in this section are text dependent, meaning that they require the learners to look closely at the texts to get the needed information. As we will see, there is a progression in the level of difficulty of these questions as we move from beginning to intermediate to advanced. Okay, here is a reading in the student book at the beginning level. This is a letter of recommendation for a student who is seeking a job. So you will note that the topic is jobs. And here is the companion beginning level reading that is found in the online CCR worksheet. This is a help wanted notice for a job as a care assistant. Again, the topic is jobs. Right after the reading on the CCR worksheet, there is a section called Analyze the Texts. To answer the questions, students must be familiar with both the reading in the student's book and the reading in the worksheet. At the top, the objective is stated. Compare two or more texts on the same topic. Notice that the first question is the main idea question. What is the topic of the two readings? Students can choose the answer from two choices. Following the main idea question, there are two questions that are detail questions. Question 2 asks about how the articles are similar, and question 3 asks how the articles are different. Again, students have two choices for each question at the beginning level. Here is an example of a low intermediate reading in the Ventures 3 students book. The article is from Unit 8, which is again a work unit, and it's a blog written by a woman named Eden who is writing about her job search process. Actually, the blog is considerably longer than what you see here. The reading is more difficult from beginning level readings, both in length and vocabulary. Here is the accompanying low intermediate reading in the online CCR worksheet. Again, the topic is related to jobs. It's a series of interview tips from people who have been successful in getting a job after the interview process. The Analyze the Text section following the reading on the CCR worksheet asks students to review the reading in the student book, Eden's blog, and the CCR worksheet article, How I Got My Job, before answering the 5 questions. The first question is a main idea question. What is the topic shared by the 2 articles? Note that at the beginning level there was also a main idea question, but students chose the answer from 2 choices. Here at the intermediate level, students have to come up with the answer on their own. The next 3 questions are detailed questions that draw from both articles. For example, look at question 2. Both articles say it is important to practice before an interview. Describe one way to practice from each article. Again, these detailed questions are more difficult than they were at the beginning level, where students just had to choose between 2 possible answers. The final question is a different question type, an opinion question. It asks, in your opinion, which of the 3 interview tips is the most important? Explain your reason for choosing it. In thinking about their answer, students have to reflect on and pull from what they have read in both articles. At the advanced level, there are actually 2 readings in the student book, lessons C and D in each unit, plus a supplementary reading in the online worksheet. The first reading in Unit 5 is called Keys to a Successful Interview. The second reading is about how to follow up after an interview. Clearly, the topics are related. The companion CCR worksheet for Unit 5 is on the topic of hidden jobs, jobs that may not ever be advertised in job postings, but are filled internally within a company or by word of mouth. You'll note that the topic of the readings and the vocabulary are considerably more sophisticated than at the lower levels. At the advanced level, one of the readings takes an alternative view of the topic, so learners get practice in citing different points of view. Again, the section following the reading in the CCR worksheet is called Analyze the Texts. There are 4 questions here, and in the next slide I'll highlight one of them so you get a better idea. Here is the first question. In Keys to a Successful Interview, Carlos and Sheila both apply for a job. Why don't Carlos and Sheila get hired? What suggestions does the author of Accessing Hidden Jobs make about what they should do differently next time, even before they interview? You can see that this is quite an advanced question that asks students to synthesize a lot of information. Finally, I want to talk about writing as a tool for comparing texts. At the intermediate and advanced levels, the final portion of the CCR worksheet is writing. Students have just gone over the questions in the Analyze the Text section, and these answers guide them in the writing section that follows. For each assignment, there is a writing prompt and an accompanying graphic organizer that helps students to organize their writing. In this example, the instructions say, before you write, do you agree or disagree that job applicants such as Carlos and Sheila benefit from implementing the 20-20-60 rule to gain meaningful employment? If you disagree, what are alternative ways to spend time in order to get hired? Use the information from exercises 1 to 4 and evidence from the 2 texts to support your opinion. Complete the graphic organizer your teacher gives you with your 3 key arguments and evidence to support each argument. You can see that the questions in the Analyze the Text section serve as the prompts for the writing that follows. This slide also shows you at the bottom an example of a graphic organizer which helps students to come up with an outline for their writing. It's a valuable tool for students who are learning to write. Here's an example of a different graphic organizer at the intermediate level. Here there are 3 columns where students fill in examples for each of the 3 key points in their essay. There's a great variety in the types of graphic organizers and ventures depending on the writing task. The final step in the writing process has students sharing and comparing their writing with a partner and commenting on each other's writing. To summarize, each unit in Ventures gives students the opportunity to look at 2 or more readings that share a common topic. Students are provided with questions that help them to compare and contrast the readings by looking for main ideas, key details, and important similarities and differences. At the intermediate and advanced levels, these same questions guide students to put their ideas in writing while making use of a graphic organizer to help them organize their writing. And now I pass back to Sylvia Ramirez, who has some things to say in closing and will give you a chance to ask some questions.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you. So in our brief time together, I'm just going to summarize what the current CCR worksheets have. Whoops, I don't know what happened here. I'll also tell you how to question and what everybody's waiting for, how to get these worksheets, and there's a very easy way to do it. And then we'll ask you a reflection question. Thank you. Okay. So every worksheet has the following: a text and check your understanding. And remember that it's on the same topic as what is in the workbook. Build your vocabulary activities to find academic words and use academic language. There's opportunities to compare and contrast texts. And there's writing prompts and graphic organizers to further critically analyze and synthesize information. And these could be, if you're not using Ventures, you could look for topics on the same thing that would go with these readings. So we have given you some tools here that you can work with. Now, how do we find them? It's really pretty easy. You go to the www.cambridge.org/ventures. That's our home page. At the top in the red circle, you see College Career. Click on that. When you click on that, you'll see what is circled at the bottom of the page. It takes 2 clicks to get to here. At this click, you see CCR Ventures Worksheets Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, Level 4, and Advanced, called Transitions because that's the name of the advanced text in the series. If you want to download them, all you need to do is register and have a password. So then they're yours to use and enjoy and share. Now we'd like to take a moment to answer questions. One of the questions that we saw coming up a lot of the time was to your pre-literacy low-level students, and Gretchen would like to talk about that.
I taught the literacy level for many, many years, and when we were developing these workshops, believe me, we debated a lot about writing them at this low level, but decided not to, because remember, at the basic level, at the literacy level, the main goal is for students to produce words and phrases and then be able to match their oral language with words and phrases in print. It's really heavier focus on language development rather than critical thinking, etc. However, we can work on teaching strategies to get students to start applying some of those critical thinking skills. For example, in a visual, of course at that level we work mostly with visuals. And so in a visual, let's say with a birthday party scene or something, you could ask a question first, what do you see? And the learners share what they know. But you could go on and ask an inference question, like pointing to someone, for example, is he happy? And then they probably say yes. We say, well, how do you know? And see if they have the language to come up with a clue. That's sort of one example to start, get those thinking skills going. The problem, though, is can they really express what they're seeing in the language that they have? So that's questionable. But or another question would be, how old do you think this person is? That kind of thing. But again, they may not have the comprehension to get that. But those are just one example of something we can do at the low literacy level. But certainly we can start doing it with Book 1, which is Level 1. And these worksheets do go down that low. When you see the complete worksheets, I think you'll see how they do work with Book 1, but would be difficult to work with the basic level. And when the students are doing that with the visual, of course, they're citing evidence, but they're just citing evidence based on a visual rather than text.
Dennis, did you want to say anything about this? Or I think you have a question that came to you.
I think Gretchen covered the question about basic. One question that came to me is that Gretchen was talking a lot about academic words, and I'm just curious if everybody knows where these academic words come from.
Maybe Mary Louise could type in the link and then everybody could see it. We'll also type in a link for the College and Career Readiness Standards if anyone wants to see that. We're getting some lovely comments here. Thank you. Notice on the screen right now, you can download your certificate right now of participation. So it's available for you as you finish it. Okay, we have one more question here, and then we'll do one last activity.
Someone has asked if you could use these worksheets even if you're not using Ventures. And yes, you can. All of the worksheets are available free online. The first page of the worksheets is the reading and then the comprehension questions and has the vocabulary. And those can be used on their own without using Venture Students Book. However, if you would like to have students compare two texts and have them do the writing prompt that happens in levels 3, 4, and transitions, then you would need the reading that is in the Ventures book to do those exercises. But the first part of all the worksheets could be done without using Ventures. It's richer, of course, if you do use Ventures.
So thank you again for sharing time with us. I know your time's valuable, and we really appreciate the time you spent with us. We wonder, as you leave, if you could type one idea that could be new or an idea that was reinforced to you that you plan to implement in your classroom teaching. If you could type that into the chat pod, that gives us additional information about what helped you in the webinar and what we can do better.